You are listening to Peterborough Politics Podcast, aka PTBO Polypod. If you want to hashtag us on Twitter, we don't have music yet, but you know what we do have? We have a great, fantastic live audience because we record this show live on twitch.tv. So if you're in chat with us right now, please say hi, and we thank you so much for being here. Peterborough Politics Podcast is hosted by myself, Danny Taro, and Sebastian. Sebastian, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Sebastian Johnston-Lindsay. Excuse me, my goodness, we're off to a rip-roaring start here on my end. Sebastian Johnston-Lindsay, coordinating editor of Arthur newspaper in Peterborough.
That's right, and we would like to thank our sponsor of the show, which is Arthur newspaper, which is the student newspaper affiliated with Trent University. They are the official sponsor of the show because they are also the employer of both of us hosting this show. Myself as the web designer and newspaper designer, crossword maker, basically whatever needs to get done and nobody knows how to do, that's kind of my job over at the Arthur.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, we depend on you for a lot of different things that we just can't figure out, and we always know that you'll find an answer for us.
Yeah, and you know what? We have so much to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
Even though, as Sebastian says, politics is a slow-moving train, we are dedicated to riding the train because we believe in public transportation over here on this podcast.
Absolutely.
And we might even have a little bit of drama. I don't know but if we do talk about drama on this show, it's always going to be saved for the end. So if you're here for the drama, that means you have to listen all the way to the end. But before we get into anything, I think it's important to acknowledge the legacy of Jack Doris, who is the former mayor of Peterborough and a former councillor as well. So Jack Doris passed away on Saturday, March 4th at the age of 92. So rest in peace, Jack Doris. Thank you for your time as a public servant. I'm not someone who's personally familiar with Jack Doris, that he served as mayor and as councillor before I ever moved to Peterborough, but maybe it's something that you heard about at the most recent city council meeting, Sebastian?
Yeah, so the meeting started off with a tribute to Jack Doris given by Mayor Jeff Leal, and Mayor Leal from 1984 until around 2003 when he was elected to provincial politics as a Liberal member of provincial parliament, served alongside Jack Doris. Jack Doris served on council basically from 1967 until with some odd breaks within that time frame until his retirement in 2014. So a very long career. He was mayor from 92 until 97. Yeah, just a fairly, from everything I've heard from people, he was also in politics before I moved here. So I never got to meet him, or I was never around. However, just a very long and from all intents, from everything that everyone has said, a good, long and very well respected career in politics. Yeah, so.
Right. And I guess maybe now being a kind of like younger generation of politicos here, maybe the fact that we've never heard of him is a good thing for his legacy, because we tend to only hear about bad stuff when it comes to political legacies.
That's probably true. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I mean, I don't know how many people would be able to talk about like a lot of mayors unless it's like Rob Ford in Toronto, right? Across Canada, I mean, or Hazel McCallion, or like these sorts of like very storied names, right? So it could be that we could look at it like that. I mean, 67 to 2014 that's a long time to be in politics, right? So a lot of opportunities to mess up, and ostensibly he didn't make too many headlines. At least I haven't done too much digging, but
Yeah.
no, from everything I've heard, he was also a very big softball player, and
Okay.
yeah, his nickname was Lefty, which I found very interesting. As a massive baseball fan, I always like to hear about other people's interests in
Okay.
sports
So
and stuff.
But just to confirm, like, was he a lefty on the field or in city council or as the mayor? Was he a lefty? That's what I really want to know.
I can't. I don't know. I don't know enough about him. Um, I wish I did. I'm gonna try and figure it out. Although, I get the sense that he was very much a mentor for Jeff Leal, and if Jeff Leal is any indication of the kind of mentorship that he may have received from the '80s to the early 2000s on council, then you know, Leal was a liberal MPP, right? So
That's right. Yes. And I guess since we are not in the know here, if you are in the audience and you feel like, hey, maybe you do know something that you would like to share with us about Jack Doris, please do so in the comments, or you can reach out to us personally, maybe to give us a little more information. Um, he was a mayor for 45 years, so he basically was like a career politician. Um, and
yeah,
and some people, when they heard about his death, maybe said, wow, that's too long of a time to be in it, to hold office, maybe. And there is has been some conversation about like term limits. I'm not sure. What is your opinion about term limits?
yeah, it can go one way or the other, right? Because like everyone, I mean, I don't. I don't know if I have a great answer on this. I mean, I feel like it should be something that's allowed. And I mean, he only served one term as mayor, right? But he was a councillor for um aside from that one term, and then some years after that, he served in I believe Monaghan ward. Um, so yeah, I mean, off and on for that time period. Term limits are a great idea. I feel like it should probably be something that to look at within within politics. I mean, I've read some things about like, I mean, Hazel McCallion served for like, I believe it was like almost like some obscene number of terms. I don't know the exact number, but for over like 40 years as mayor of Mississauga. And when you consider how many other people could have had the opportunity and the number of times that she ran unopposed, um, it speaks to kind of like an apathy regarding politics. Like people just don't really see the opportunity. Like if the same person keeps running over and over again, like how are you ever going to like beat them, right? So if they're not
Yeah,
allowed to run, that would open the door for more people to uh, get in. So I mean, it's an interesting topic, you know. Um, yeah,
yeah.
it
We
sounds
have
like
some
something
people.
that would be good.
Yeah, maybe. I know. I believe like Diane Therrien was someone who believed in that. Um,
Yes, very strongly.
and then she kind of put her own limits on herself as well, which fair enough. Some
Yeah,
people
she
in
did.
chat are saying that Jack Doris was a very old guard Peterborough, not a modern expletive conservative, but not a progressive either. Another person is saying that he was with the city for 45 years, representing Monaghan Ward for 39 years, and serving as mayor for another 6 years. So thank you so much, chat, for your contributions. It's always great to feel as though we're producing this as part of a community. We can't always have the answers to everything, so thank you.
Mhm.
um Last week we left off with the question, why do certain counselors get to be part of the hiring committee for the new chief administrative officer? I was wondering if you had a chance to look into this, or maybe if we don't know why they get to be, like, has there been any developments on the story of finding a new CAO?
Yeah, so this didn't come up too much at council this week. This was just approved at a previous council meeting. Um, as to the reason why, sorry, as to the reason why certain councillors get to sit on it, I think um, council is creates committees like all the time, right? To deal with certain things, and I'm guessing if my best guess is that these are just the people who council felt would best represent them within this committee. That's to say, like once someone is hired, I would imagine that the entirety of council would have to approve it. This is just the committee to oversee the hiring or the interviews, right? So, for
Okay.
example, when the city recently went through the process of uh, and full disclosure, like I'm on the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. So when they were going and doing that process and seeking citizen appointments for for those committees, it wasn't the entirety of council, it was a select number of them. So these are the kinds of things that are just kind of going on an ongoing basis. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to there's been a lot happening, and a lot of stuff was erupting in the middle of council that kind of took my attention away from
Fair,
part of
that's
it.
fair.
One of
And I
the
mean, just to catch people up, the hiring panel consists of Mayor Jeff Leal,
Mhm.
alongside councillors Kevin Duguay, Leslie Parnell, Andrew Beamer, and Gary Baldwin. So it will be those, is that 5, 6 that get to choose? That's 5. And there's also the Phelps group, which is going to find the potential candidates. So they've outsourced this to a group as well, who is going to find these candidates and be part of the interview process.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting that town ward isn't represented in that. I'm just
It is a bit interesting. I wish the progressive counselors, Alex Bierk and Joelle Chica, were a part of this
yeah,
panel
yeah,
as well. And it does concern me. However, that the panel has said that the chief administrative officer has to be progressive.
yeah, yeah. So it's a very interesting dichotomy there, especially because you have both Duguay and Parnell on it, right?
Right. The
So
people who are
two ward mates. Um,
staunchly also not progressives in
yeah,
at
and
least
also the fact,
socially.
yeah, yeah, and kind of I mean both autonomy ward um counselors as well, right? So there's two
Yes.
autonomy and zero town, but that's I don't know. It's interesting. It's something to follow for sure. And I mean I'm anticipating that a lot of this will be happening behind closed doors in closed session or at alternative meetings of the committee as well. So it's not as if it's going to be a very public thing until the hiring is kind of at its end, right? And it comes forward for council approval. And at that time, things might get very interesting. But
Right, right. Yeah, that could be interesting. I guess it is a lot of power and responsibility for someone who is not democratically elected in the same way that our own counselors are. I mean, there you could argue
Mhm.
that, well, we've democratically elected the counselors and they are choosing this person, but I mean, we know that the previous person holding this position, Sandra Clancy,
Mhm.
held on to the position for like as long as they really could. This is a job that will probably last longer than several counselorships, um, council terms, right? They're saying like at least probably 10 years. And yeah, it's kind of wild that they get to choose this. They are saying that this person is going to focus on housing and homelessness as a key priority, and having lands available for employers, as well as dealing with the ongoing shortages of family doctors as well. So I mean that it is really like all the responsibility of council does get placed on this kind of one person, and we do hope that if their job, one of their responsibilities is to find housing and homelessness, we do hope that they have different priorities than our previous CAO, Sandra Clancy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she served since 2018 in this position, but she's been an employee of the City of Peterborough since 1985.
Oh
So
my
she's held a
goodness.
variety of different positions. Yeah, yeah. So almost 40 years within the City of Peterborough, but only the last almost 5 years in the top role. But presumably, this person will be in this role for longer than 5 years moving forward when they are hired. Um, Although it's going to be a rather senior person, right? Because this is like the top administrative position in the entire city and the only uh, employee of council, really, right? So it'll be very
Right.
interesting to see how this moves forward. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to set the tone for Peterborough in a way for, as you say, at least 5 years, possibly even longer. It almost like depends on how old the person is that they that they hire, like, because they will probably retire at this position, so, like, so that
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
influence how long they are here.
Yeah. There's really nowhere else to go in terms of like up the hierarchy of the city from this position, and so the only place that they would go is to another city, right? It's the only option for career advancement within this. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. And I mean, this person is someone who's going to get paid, geez, what is it? Like 8 times what a city councillor is going to make as well.
at least, yeah. There's been a lot of discourse surrounding the amount of money that Sandra Clancy was paid. I believe in 2021 is the year that gives most people a um, lot of cause for concern, if you will. Yeah, upwards of $200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
wild. It's like, especially compared to a democratically elected official. Like it's wild to me that you would even make less than 100,000 as a city councillor, but they make like less than 30,000, and it
yeah. I
is
think it's like
considered.
$32,000 a year as a
Oh,
part-time
is it?
position. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah. As a part-time position, probably less than 30,000 after taxes is maybe what
yeah,
I
yeah.
was
That's a good
maybe
point.
what I heard. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely a wild discrepancy there. And personally, I would love there to be more incentive for people who cannot afford to be a city councilor, maybe aim for that position.
Yeah, I mean that's another huge conversation, and I know in discussions with specifically Stephen Wright and during his mayoral candidacy and Diane Therrien, yeah, definite proponents of paying counselors a little bit more because right now it's for people on council this is considered a side hustle almost, right?
Yeah,
It's people who can afford to do this position for very little money,
right.
right? And it's a very important position as well, right? And I'm not saying to discount like the work of the counselors, like they are there at all the meetings, right? And they are earning it, but it would be good to see them actually be able to treat it like a full-time elected position. Yeah,
Yeah. You hear a
yeah,
lot of about a lot of side hustles in this day and age. You don't hear many of them being making laws
mhm,
as a side hustle. That's pretty ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's kind of it's an interesting conversation, right? Because we would like to yeah, we would like to have people who are in it for what they actually to actually affect change rather than to maintain the status quo and to kind of um and to come from different backgrounds, right? Come from different economic and social backgrounds. Because
Yeah.
taking a look around the council table, it's not exactly the case at the moment. But
Not exactly the case. No. There's
yeah,
some serious need in some DEI training to say the least. And
yeah,
in our past iteration of council, it seems like we were very lucky to have like,
mhm, yep,
more people of color, more in as part of council. And I've heard stories of even people moved to Peterborough because they thought it was this progressive place. And then
yeah,
this
yeah,
more recent iteration of council is not exactly the case.
yeah. No, it's kind of swung back the other direction, for sure.
Yeah.
At one point, Diane Therrien was very proud of the fact that she was leading what she deemed like the most diverse council in Ontario, right? And I
Mhm.
think like statistically speaking that was the case, right? Also, a lot of younger people on that council as well, right?
That's right.
Dietarian included, right? Um, uh, yeah, and now we've swung right back.
Swung right
Uh,
back to like the way Peterborough has kind of always been.
yes,
We got
yeah,
like a old white man as our mayor, and it wasn't until I guess 1986 when Sylvia Sutherland became the first elected female mayor in Peterborough. They were usurped, and I mean not usurped, but I'm speaking matter of factly
yeah,
by Jack Doris, and then
yes,
Jack
yeah,
Doris, R.I.P., had to step away in 1997, and Sylvia Sutherland again became the mayor, the second female mayor, herself also being the first, and
yeah,
Diane Therrien being the real second woman
yes,
mayor of Peterborough. So
yeah,
and now and in that time we also had Paul Ayotte, Daryl Bennett, and now we have Jeff Leal. So crazy to think that Jack Doris was now like five mayorships back ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild. He was elected mayor before I was born, so it's
Oh
kind of funny.
wow. Yes. I
Yeah,
forget you're still a baby. Really.
yeah,
I guess I'm the I mean, and we would both be considered babies if we were to be elected to city council.
we would. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same age as Diane was when Diane Therrien.
Okay.
Speaking so informally about former
Yeah.
Mayor Diane Therrien.
That's right. Say the full title. Put some respect on the name.
Yeah,
Come on.
former mayor, her worship, Diane Therrien. Um, she'd like that, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm the same age as she was when she was elected to council for the first time. So I don't know what I'm doing with my life.
Well, people in chat are saying please run.
Please run. We'll
Yeah.
see. Maybe I'll make a run and I'll consult some people. Um,
Well, we got your team right here. You got me, you got chat. What else do you need?
I'd have to get another yeah, I'll have to wait a little while for an official announcement, but it's
Yeah.
that would be kind of interesting. I'd have to find another side hustle because I don't know. I think it actually pays less than Arthur.
Oh my
So
goodness. Wow.
yeah,
That
so
is
that's
I guess
not, and
you
I'm not raking it in.
that's
Like I
right.
have to
Yeah.
I have to have a second job to work for Arthur. So,
Right. And you probably couldn't do both. Be the
no,
editor of a newspaper and a city councilor.
that might be a little bit conflicted.
It might be, but
A little bit.
it's Peterborough
Then
Council.
then
Would
again, we
would
have a
they?
we have an we have someone on there who's actively like a private consultant for planning and development. So
Yeah, exactly. Would it even matter? I don't think so.
does anything matter anymore, Danny? I mean, that's my
Yeah,
that's
well,
my overarching question. That's the mood of the week. Does anything actually matter?
speaking of things that might not matter anymore,
Mhm.
what about vaccines?
Yeah, this is an interesting thing, and I love it when you pulled up the full report, the document. You're like, Sebastian expects me to read all this. I'm kidding.
I did. I ended up reading it.
I
Come
know,
on,
I
like
know. Well, they're
if you.
nicely laid out because they have the recommendation, and then they have all the gobbledygook behind that, right? So, but yeah, I mean, this didn't really cause a lot of I mean, the motion to rescind the vaccine policy was adopted by the general committee, and on March 27th, it'll be voted on again, and I imagine it'll kind of go through to rescind this. The one thing that was of note in this on this was Keith Riel. There wasn't a lot of questions that surrounded it. Councillor Keith Riel just kind of asked, like, have to asked the city staff who were in attendance, has anyone been terminated as a result of this? And Richard Friedman, the Commissioner of Legislative and Corporate Services, basically said nope, and that was the entirety of his answer, and that seemed to satisfy everybody. And yeah, so more or less, council is in favor of rescinding the vaccine
Okay.
mandates.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there was a policy around COVID that you should keep your workplace as safe as possible, which included preventing people from spreading novel viruses, and being up to date on their vaccines. And now they've taken that back.
Yeah.
You no longer need to be vaccinated. And now this is to work for the city, or this is across the city?
I believe this is specifically to do with the city itself. So the
Okay.
corporation of, like, to work at the city proper.
Right.
I don't know if um, the city would have the authority to necessarily put that on other businesses.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think that would probably be a provincial mandate at that in that respect.
Yeah, we would
Um,
probably see some rallies if that was the case. Oh wait, we already did over just about
yeah,
nothing.
every Saturday at Confederation Park.
That's right.
I can hear them from my window. But yeah, so more or less just saying that new hires will no longer be required to provide proof of vaccination, and the unvaccinated employees at the city won't have to do rapid antigen testing anymore. This
Okay.
there was some discussion about the fact that the city of Peterborough has been following guidelines coming from the federal and provincial governments, and that this is more or less in response to the direction that they're going. So yeah, it's an interesting little thing. I mean, I dare say that,
Yeah.
I mean, COVID's not over, but you know,
COVID's not over. I guess I have mixed feelings about this at this the pandemic. I'm someone who's gotten all my vaccines. I think I'm at like
yep,
5 now.
yep,
And I still wear a mask when I'm out there in public. Um, I think at this point, every just about everyone has either had the vaccine or had the virus, and the
or
virus
both.
in or both, yeah.
Yep.
And so there is like some level of protection. We've never reached that elusive herd immunity that
No.
everyone thought was going to be a thing, but it's the important thing to me is masking. And whether you want to if you want to get vaccinated or get the virus or not, I think the important thing is to mask, and they're probably not doing that either because kind of like everybody has abandoned um, COVID precautions at this point, except for myself, I guess, and the people I know, and but it's we are definitely the minority.
Yeah, yeah. It's still a delicate topic to talk about, right? Because yeah, I mean, there are people who attend every council meeting who are rampant anti-vaxxers, and they just kind of sit there. And I didn't actually see if they were in the room when this was rescinded, or rescinded in principle, right? Because it hasn't officially been approved by council proper. But yeah, they were very silent. I'm sure they're happy though. That's like I mean, the way that they try, historically, I feel like the way that people, and specifically like conservative politicians, whenever a government tries to or rescinds a COVID policy, they act like it's some big policy win for them, and like in the name of freedom, right? But
Yeah,
it tends to be like a something that's been informed and looked over by public health officials, and they're not acting out of like allegiance to anti-vax protesters. But it's an
yeah.
interesting little point. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is like a victory for the anti-vaxxers, but it would be shocking if they hired a new chief administrative officer who was an anti-vaxxer as a result of this. But I really don't think.
Maybe they have someone in mind. Maybe they have someone
Yeah,
in mind.
right.
Oh no, we can't hire this person because they're a noted anti-vax
That's right.
protester.
Maybe this is all just
I
part of
hope
that
not.
process. They're just
Wow.
they're
See,
opening the gates there.
see now,
Removing the red tape.
yeah, removing the red tape to hire the prospective anti-vax CAO of Peterborough. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is wild conjecture. This is
Yes.
completely baseless, but very fun to speculate about.
Yes.
Or just follow them in the tracks.
That's right. That's right. Um all
Too
right.
funny.
So yeah, we're trying to make it interesting here, but
Yeah, if
yeah,
it happens, people heard it here first. If it happens, right?
that's right. Even though we are
Yeah.
just joking, we said you
Yes.
heard it here first.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about Bill 5. Now there was a motion for Bill 5, which is the Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act.
Yes.
So this is the idea is that it will propose important measures to prevent and address harassment and abuse by local leaders in the workplace, including creating a process for removing leaders from office in cases of egregious acts. Now, when I first heard about this, I thought it was to stop harassment against local leaders because we know that
Mm,
they have faced a lot of harassment in the wake of like COVID-19 and you know go home f wads and all of that,
right.
and that was a response to harassment. But this is actually about local leaders being the harassers.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, and that's what makes it kind of interesting. It's so this again was put forward by Town Ward Councillor Alex Bierk, and it's kind of in line with what certain other um, councils across Ontario have done, specifically Sault Ste. Marie, Barrie, and I believe Orillia. So this is a private member's bill, meaning that someone not from the government is sponsoring it, the Ontario government. So MPP Stephen Blais, who's an Ottawa area MPP, and former Ottawa councillor. And this is what's kind of informing his coming forward with this, is his experience on Ottawa City Council when Councillor Rick Shirelli went through a massive sort of harassment suit, and there was really nothing that the council could do about it to remove him from office, right? The worst that they could do is suspend him without pay for 3 months, right? And so this bill is really directed at holding elected leaders accountable when credible allegations of harassment come forward against them, and being able to actually remove them from office. But then the legislation also suggests amendments to the Municipal Act and City of Toronto Act, I believe. So 2 pieces of provincial legislation that would allow them to not only remove these people from office, but also bar them from running in subsequent elections, which is pretty good reason. I mean, as if people need a reason not to harass people, but
I guess some people
pretty
do.
strict penalties. I guess some people really do. And this on the discussion around this, Kevin DeGay, Autonomy Ward Councillor Kevin DeGay, spoke to the fact that when he first come across this, he was probably leaning more towards like suggesting a deferral on the motion. So we've talked about deferrals on the show before, right? But the idea of not passing and not defeating the motion, but just like pushing it down the road until more information comes forward. But after he started reading about like the support this was getting from other municipalities, he had his mind kind of turned. So I mean, that was an interesting thing for him to come forward and say. And you know, he spoke to the importance of it from the point of view of wanting to he kind of had a twist in his words at the end. He sort of said like, I'm in support of this, but I want to prove the fact that it's not necessary. He's like, I support having this in place, but I think that we should all aspire to never have it be needed, right? So he thinks it's needed, but he wants to prove to people that it shouldn't be needed, right? Because people should just not be harassing people at work, to the point where code of conduct investigations at the provincial level are being launched against elected municipal officials. So again, Alex Bierk getting things done.
Alex Bierk getting things done, a theme that we have.
Yeah, as he tends to do
Here in Peterborough. Do
yeah.
you think there was anyone who was like started sweating? They're like, oh no.
Well, I mean, Sandra Clancy's body language kind of was interesting during this. She, of course, there's been some background, and like in the Examiner article, the initial Examiner article that concerned the motion coming forward. So city council agendas are released about usually on Wednesday or Thursday before the Monday meeting. So Joelle Kovac, our friend Joelle at the Examiner, she wrote a piece about sort of the context out of which this is arising and possible connections to Peterborough, also putting in context of like why Stephen Blais is the one coming forward for this at the provincial level. But of course, Diane Therrien and Sandra Clancy's relationship was rather strained near the end of Mayor Therrien's term. So yeah, it was an interesting thing to kind of put in this, and I think Joelle did mention the fact that you know, Mayor Therrien was found to not have breached any code of conduct concerns. However, there was an investigation launched that could have the kind of investigation that could have resulted in removal from office did transpire in Peterborough as recently as like 2022. So within the context of that, it's interesting. However, Alex Bierk is very adamant. You know, he's tweeted about this, but he's also told me in conversation like this isn't about any previous council. This isn't about Peterborough Council. This is about supporting provincial legislation and municipalities across the province.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like the examiner still kind of might have a bit of a hate on for Diane Therrien. Is that also something that's happening?
Hate on, maybe. I mean, it's I don't want to put too it I feel like like the reason it was included in this article and uh was not to it was to draw attention to the fact that similar issues have happened in Peterborough, and it was
Right.
clear about the fact that it did not um result in Diane Therrien being found um in contravention of anything. This the animosity between um, former Mayor Diane Therrien and Sandra Clancy, the CAO, is rooted in some comments made around the implementation of a housing plan. Mayor Therrien felt that it wasn't being implemented fast enough, and then there was some correspondence between Diane Therrien and other councillors, which, read in a certain context, could suggest that Diane Therrien was putting a little bit of public pressure on um, Sandra Clancy to retire before she was ready to. So Sandra Clancy is going to retire in the next couple months. However, there was a possibility it could have been last year.
Right.
So it's kind of,
And that report, I think, about housing and homelessness, if I remember correctly, Sandra Clancy admitted also that it sat on her desk for quite some time.
yes. Yeah. So it comes down to the priorities of council, and Diane Therrien would always talk about, like, this isn't a personal attack on Sandra. This is like, I have concerns about the way that council's um, uh, uh, priorities are being implemented, and you know, I have questions about the speed at which it is. And
Yeah.
this was deemed a difficult conversation between the two of them, and Sandra Clancy felt that it was harassing behavior, and that she was pressuring her out of her job.
Right. And I mean, it must be tough. I do sympathize with Diane Therrien, because all the pressure is on you to
Yeah,
get things done.
yeah,
And when the sole employee of council is not, let's just say, you have a troublesome working relationship with the sole employee of council, and it would make it very hard to get things done. And I think anyone would find that challenging, to be in that position.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. It's important to note too that all of these legal questions and the reports that came out of them, um, like, cost the city like upwards of $80,000. Um,
Right.
so that's another interesting little tidbit as well. It's not cheap to bring forward these harassment um, allegations and the investigations associated with them, right? And there were multiple investigations concerning different aspects of this as well. So,
Right. Yeah. It
well,
costs us a lot of money to have just what is basically a workplace um issue.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, it does kind of also highlight how important this position is of chief administrative officer, and how much kind of power they have over council as well. Like, I don't know, are do you know, like, is council able to just be like, hey, you know what, you're fired? Or like, was there a reason that they had to try to force Sandra Clancy to retire early? Like, or was it just like a decorum thing?
yeah. So I don't think that they have the power. I'm not certain, but I would be surprised if they had the exclusive power to dismiss.
Okay,
I think it would have to be a pretty serious reason. Although,
I see.
if they have the capacity to hire, then maybe they do. I'd have to follow up and see if that is the case. But I would imagine it would have to be a pretty um, intense reason. Um, and in terms of like the issues arose out of like what most things come out of is just a lot of like kind of miscommunication. From my understanding of it, that it was noted that Sandra Clancy was intending on retiring soon, and so um, but she was not forthcoming with a date, and so this added to the concerns of Mayor Therrien when she was in office, saying like, well, if you're going to retire, let us know because we need to plan for that. And this was kind of construed to the point where It was
I see. I
blown up
see.
into almost Sandra Clancy feeling like she was being pressured to retire. However, she herself had mentioned that she intended to retire, but had not come forward with a date.
Oh
So
God.
like
Yeah.
it's like a game of broken telephone. And I mean, all of this was happening at a time when council wasn't meeting in person, and so everything was happening via Zoom calls. And things get messy.
Okay.
It's things get really messy when you can't like just talk to people face to face.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
All right.
interesting times.
Interesting. It was an interesting little Peterborough drama, and yeah, sad that it
Yes,
cost us all so much money. Would have
yeah,
rather seen that $80,000 go to the the thing that was left on Sandra Clancy's desk there, housing and homelessness. But
yeah, yeah. One would have preferred that. Yeah, I think.
yeah. And
Yeah,
again, just to clarify, this like Bill 5 it had really nothing to do with that incident, but it is potentially something that we might see affect a city councilor or a mayor in the future once it's like officially enacted.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's an interesting piece, and I mean it's past it's in second reading now in Queens Park. And so by the time a bill gets to that point, it has to pass third reading and receive royal assent. So I mean, it's getting close, which is kind of rare for a. I shouldn't say too. It's less likely for a private member's bill to come forward like this and be successful. So the fact that it's getting to this point means that it's in all likelihood going to pass um, through the Doug Ford government and receive royal assent and immediately become
Wow.
become law when it does. Yeah, it kind of yeah, it's been ongoing since before the previous uh, provincial election as well in 2022. So um, and Jeff Leal has an interesting point of view on this too, because he feels uh, being a former provincial politician, right? He understands the significance of private members' bills, and like the way that they can kind of inform government policy, right? Um, moving forward. So he spoke to his experience in
Okay.
at Queens Park, and how it's important for governments to kind of take the concerns of private members' bills seriously. Yeah,
All right. Well,
very interesting.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it sounds like a good thing. Um,
yeah,
I think
yeah, absolutely.
if you harass someone, then you probably don't have the good enough sense to be in charge of creating laws for people. It seems pretty obvious, and I guess it also does kind of highlight the potential for people to abuse their power as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
a victory hopefully on the horizon.
Yes,
Somebody in chat is saying, now let's do that to cops. That would be nice. One can
it
only
would be
dream.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
one can only dream. Yeah,
One other thing, it wasn't in our docket here, but I did see that there are some potential developments about having more doctors in Peterborough.
yeah, yeah. So one of the recruiter in the area, Kevin Kirkpatrick, gave a report to council, or I mean general committee in the council chambers, regarding some of the strategies that he's been trying to implement. He's been on the job for about 9 months now, and so it was just sort of a routine update in terms of where things are at. And so currently we have he went through some of the main ways in which he's attempting to kind of attract more doctors to the area, saying, we need about 20 more doctors, and right now we have 12 locums. So this is a new term that I was unaware of. So I guess when people graduate from medical school, a lot of a lot of people will choose to be what is referred to as a locum. So someone who is a doctor, who can work but doesn't have a practice and isn't nailed down to a specific practice within a certain area, and so they can kind of move around. The problem with that, however, is that they don't actually reduce the burden or the wait list for family physicians, because they're just kind of a placeholder until they move on, right? So it doesn't affect
Oh,
like the backlog of people who don't have a family physician. And so some of the strategies that he was talking about included attempting to bring back Canadian citizens who had been trained at medical schools abroad. So specifically looking at those who went to medical school in the United States, United Kingdom, and Ireland, trying to bring them back to Canada and specifically to Peterborough. And then he talked about another aspect of this is attracting international, so people who weren't born in Canada but who were internationally trained physicians to Canada, right? But then talking about the expense of that as well, right? Because you need to find someone who's going to basically, like a business, a practice who's going to sponsor them, in addition to the funding that's needed to actually fund the practice itself as it gets started up, right? So all of the equipment and staffing and actual upgrades to the building that they're going to be in, right? So yeah.
Okay, I mean,
right now,
it's nice to even just hear that this is something that they're thinking about. You know, I know for so many of us just have trouble finding a family doctor here in Peterborough. You know, people are on that waiting list for what seems like forever. And there might be no getting off that waiting list unless council kind of like steps up and does something.
yeah. So there wasn't within the budget, there was approximately $80,000 given to council to aid in the recruitment. So the things that Kevin Kirkpatrick needs to kind of carry out his work. Yeah. And he seems to be working fairly hard in terms of like implementing like a tiered strategy towards it, right? Like ideally he would be attracting Canadian residents to move here, people who are graduating from Canadian universities and medical programs in Canada to come to Peterborough. He also talked about the fact that Canada's just not training enough physicians here in Canada to fill the need across the country. And this is kind of something that he talked about in terms of not only our national issue within Canada, but also like a global issue, because there just aren't enough resources or schools basically to train the physicians that we need. And this isn't just a Canadian issue either. It's a kind of a global issue. And so he kind of used like it's, robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing, right? Like if we're attracting international physicians, then we're adding to the stressors in that country, right? So it's a very complex and ongoing issue. It sounds to me like one thing Ontario and most provincial governments could do is allocate more funding to universities and medical programs, and better support people who are going to medical school within Canada, and to allow for more people to attend. But to allow for more people to attend, they need to get more faculty and they need to get more resources within the schools themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really complex
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish there was an easier way out. I guess some potentially good news is that they're opening up a walk-in clinic at the Walmart on Shamong.
Yes.
That might improve some access to healthcare. I know it's always been so hard to go to the walk-in clinic at Peterborough because it's packed, because there's definitely a demand here. Do you know anything about this Walmart clinic?
It was brought up a little bit at council. Yeah, I think they're finding they might have someone in the works in terms of being able to attract a physician to that location. Yeah, he's had a number of recent we call site visits from physicians. Some people from Toronto who are interested in moving to Peterborough. He takes them around and shows them the possible places where a practice could be set up in the area, and that would be one of them. Is kind of the walk-in clinic there, to have a resident physician there.
I do hope that it's not a part of Walmart, but I mean, I guess I would take the W, if that meant we could have a walk-in clinic. So I'm saying there is no walk-in clinic at the moment. I thought there was one at Lansdowne Mall. I've never been to it personally. But I don't know, maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough never have to go to a walk-in clinic in Peterborough. So
Yeah, and then
I'm
there's
not
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 even
entirely
any,
sure.
right, and then there's not any virtual clinics either, because I believe they were shut down by the Ford government, decided to defund them, and a lot
Yes.
of people lost their access to healthcare there as well.
Yeah, they
Chat
did.
is saying that the one at Superstore closed because Buddy got his license suspended.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun.
So yeah, it
Um,
sounds like we really need some help here in Peterborough. And I wish, in my opinion, they're building that damn twin pad arena or whatever. They're building hockey rinks, and then they're saying, "Hey, we need all the we if wouldn't it be nice if we had a place to where like doctors could work?"
yeah,
And to me, I'm like, "Oh, why don't they not build that another
yeah,
sports complex, because we already have so many, and why don't we
yeah,
build like a medical facility?" That is, really my kind of hot take. I wish we were allocating resources to one of the most important issues that we face, and not something that will inevitably just serve the rich people who can afford to engage in like sports, especially sports that require a lot of startup cash. I do have one friend who, an indigenous person, who says that Canadians are crazy because they want to swim in the winter and skate in summer, and they need to spend millions and millions of dollars in order to do so. And it is, yeah, it's kind of just this wild notion that we need to be engaged in these activities off season, um instead of focusing on what's really important, which is like our health. I guess that is all part of health and wellness, but
yeah,
when we are in the middle of this crisis, um I wish more was being done.
yeah, yeah. It would be good. I mean, one of the things that they talked about too is the fact that what makes Peterborough um, an interesting place to come, or an attractive place to come for physicians, is the fact that we do have a hospital here, and so we do have like for their purposes like access to specialists to refer their patients to, and so it's but there could always be more, right? Like, and there should be more, and
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
For sure.
swimming and
Yeah.
skating are of course part of health and wellness. However, yeah, it would be good if yeah, more doctors. But I mean, it's a local issue, but it's also, like I said, an international issue, right? Like, just not enough people are being trained as doctors, which is
Yeah.
not ideal. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, shout out to
Yeah.
the PRHC as well. I mean, they took good care of
Hmm.
me when I was going through chemotherapy. So like, there is access to good care. But we really just need like more and more of it. I think it's hard for us to even keep up at the levels that we are going. And we need even more. There's plenty of people who need access to a primary physician or a family healthcare team here. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, okay, we got about 10 minutes left. One thing that I also is been grinding my gears, because I'm trying to find information every week so that we have something to talk about, is that access to the media surrounding Peterborough politics is really difficult. And you know what? I was feeling tired on at Monday at 6 o'clock, and I tuned in late to the live feed of City Hall, and I didn't know what they were talking about, and I just turned it on for a minute. Okay, I can't do this right now. But you know what? I would
Hmm.
have listened to it later that night or the next afternoon, and
Hmm.
and I'm not really able to do that, and I feel like that's really unfortunate. Not only that, but our primary source of media here, our mainstream media, the Examiner newspaper, which is owned by Metroland
Yep.
Media, they are paywalled content. So,
Yes.
if I want to access all this information, um, at least in one form, I have to pay in order to get it. Now, and it's kind of something that's been frustrating me as someone who's trying to be more informed and also inform others, is that there's all these barriers to access. Now I know the good folks at Arthur Newspaper do not have a paywall, and there
No.
are other great sources like Peterborough Currents and Kawartha
Hmm.
Now, who
Yes.
do they're these are all independent kind of sources. But I wonder if you'd also have any advice, or if there's any way to maybe break down some of these barriers.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I mean, Joelle's Twitter is like, and I know that you were going through it earlier today, but it really is a really good source. I don't know how she does it and simultaneously writes the articles that she does that
Yeah.
night. It's pretty amazing, and I'm very fortunate to have like Joelle there, because I mean, like I said, I am very new to this, right? And so she's kind of demonstrating how to kind of actively work and churn content out. I hate that word content, but churn articles out, right? Get the
Content.
info,
I love that
get the
word.
get the
No, I'm
information out.
just
Uh,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
news. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, like you said, like there is a live stream when council is in session, or if there's a committee in session. And then there, it's not immediate. However, you can go back and watch the footage as well. However, that takes 2 hours of your time, and you have to listen very carefully to what is honestly rather dull back
yes.
and forth conversations, right?
At at
It's
at one time speed. There's no. Is there an option to speed it up?
I don't think so. No,
Oh,
no,
geez.
it's all at one time.
Oh,
Yeah, and so, but the transparency in terms of like it being like you can get it there, and it is free and open to anyone on council on the city's website. It's kind of an interesting place for me to be in, because one of the things that I've wanted to do is to try and get it out as fast as possible. But unfortunately, being in my role, I'm the only person who writes about City Hall, and I also have administrative duties as in my capacity as one of the editors of Arthur, right? So I mean,
yeah,
there's things that I wanted to write about yesterday, but given circumstances beyond my control, some petty dictators and a certain student government, um, I wasn't able to focus my energies on what I would normally do, and to get that
yeah.
content out, right?
Content.
Yeah, to get the content out. Content.
Yeah, I mean, it's
We're all
really
about the
unfortunate.
content.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
I just want those videos of council to be available immediately after on YouTube, so I can watch them
Yes.
at 2 times speed and
Yeah.
be better informed, and add that to these conversations that we're having as well.
Hmm.
It's pretty sad to me that we can get a podcast episode out
Hmm.
before they can get the raw footage of city council out.
Up on their
Um,
website. Yeah, and it would be
yeah,
so much easier if they just, like us, just took the video and just popped it on YouTube. I'm now very interested to see, and I'm going to after this, see if there are any other councils that just post it on YouTube. Because they're already
yeah.
posting it on their site. Why would they? I'd be very
I've
interested to see. That's an interesting question
yeah,
that I'm
I've thought
very
about
interested
just
about.
taking the initiative and doing it myself, because I could record it as it's happening live, if
Yeah.
only a reference for myself.
Mhm.
I obviously, wouldn't want it as content, because it would probably
Oh
like
man.
put my analytics way down on my YouTube
Yeah.
channel, but
Yeah, you'd need a
um
different channel for it.
yeah, but I would really, I've considered even just taking the initiative myself and making it available to folks somehow. I really
Yeah.
wish uh the city of Peterborough would kind of get on this. Like, it's not that hard. I do it every day. You just upload a video to YouTube. It does the auto subtitling and everything.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And if they want someone to administrate that in their office from a chiefly perspective, they could
Hmm.
hire me to do that for $250,000 a year.
What whatever the CAO is
As
going to make, just double it, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Content manager would one step above the CAO will be the person
Yeah.
who uploads that to YouTube.
I think
Um,
that I think that's a very reasonable position.
yes, I
I think
totally agree.
I think they should get on that, because frankly, not most people are not going to go to I mean, as much as it is, like, I say this because I'm on the city council page every single day, right? Like looking and reading through
Yeah,
documents, right? But like most people aren't, right? Like that's not where people go to get their news.
it's
If they're
not
not
accessible
subscribed,
either. I you
No,
say they say
no,
like, oh,
it's
past meetings, and it's like goes to like 28 or something.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
even if it's there, I don't even know how to find it intuitively.
That's
Um,
the other thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, unless you know what you're looking for, it's very difficult to find. So most of the meetings that transpire are going to be under general committee.
yep,
And then
okay,
for anyone who's going to go back and wants to watch like the footage, Monday's meeting will be under general committee, and then you have council meetings, right? And that's when council makes the final decisions and receives delegations, right? So
yeah.
I mean, they do have those, right? And you can select the year. There's been 32 meetings so far this year.
My goodness. Like
Yeah,
I would love they I if they really did want to, they could hire me. I would do it for a very modest wage to just put it all on YouTube. Like it needs to be on a more accessible platform in my opinion.
yeah.
Anyways, we should get to some questions. We are
Yes, yes.
officially at 1 hour, so we are in overtime right now. We
Love
have
overtime.
one person, it's me, Jackie Typo Queen with fat fingers on Twitter, says that they want us to talk about the Blue Jays, and they also want us to talk about Peterborough City Council bingo, which or potentially designing our own bingo card so that we can I don't know, play bingo alongside our followers, which sounds like fun. I don't think we have time today to talk about Blue Jays, so hold that thought. I know you're
We'll
a
hold that
baseball
thought.
fan.
I
I'm a
love,
base.
yeah, love the
I
Jays.
I love to play baseball, but I'm not someone who like follows it actively. Um, Here's another question. I don't know if Sebastian was around when Jack Doris was the mayor or councillor. What was done to honor a former mayor who passed away? We did get to that. And Alex Bierk is saying Bill 5. Thank you so much for.
Yeah.
It's nice to see a councillor commenting on my Twitter thread, which is
It's pretty
fun.
awesome. And I think
Yeah,
that Matt Crowley commented on one of our YouTube videos too, which is pretty funny.
that is true. Yeah, we
Councilor
are
Councilor Crowley.
we're
Yeah.
getting into the Peterborough politics sphere. We're being
Yes,
acknowledged by the people who are there, which is
absolutely.
fantastic. Jennifer
Great.
Turner is saying old news now, but I was really upset when Michelle Ferreri, Peterborough Kawartha, at council last week complained about upcoming and long overdue liquor tax, especially in light of new data around cancer plus alcohol and being a destructive
Mhm.
force in lives of many. She does not contribute anything to the community. Um, so,
Thank you, Jennifer.
yeah, thank you, Jennifer.
Yes.
I guess we should say that if you comment on these things, I will read them aloud verbatim. um, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean that is
Yeah.
something that is kind of interesting. There were a couple of jokes about Michelle Ferreri worried about the price of wine,
Hmm.
specifically that the bottles that she will consume while in her bathtub.
Yeah. I was beat me to there. Beat me to saying that. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, this is just like right out of the conservative playbook because I mean, right as soon as she said that, she also talked about fighting the carbon tax, which again has been found by the Supreme Court of Canada to be constitutional. So I'm not quite
Yes.
sure where she's coming from in this, but except to just, parrot the policies put forward by Pierre Poilievre. A lot of P's there, you know? Um,
A lot of
uh,
peas in that pod. That's right.
yes. Yeah, the PPP has a lot of P's. But yeah, I mean, this is also coming out of her background as a shadow minister for tourism. So she's concerned, or at least she pretends to be concerned, about the fact that if there's this if booze is more expensive, then less people are going to come to Peterborough to be on vacation. And that these kinds of messaging around, like, specifically, it's, and Jennifer's absolutely right. Like, alcohol is not, and I mean, I'm someone who doesn't drink anymore, right? Like,
Yeah.
because
Me either. I guess there's our bias. We don't drink.
yeah, yeah, and so I find it interesting, but I mean, I'm not gonna look down on anyone who does, but I'm not quite certain, even if you did drink, if that would be the reason you didn't come to Peterborough
Yeah.
on your vacation. I'm not sure. Um, Even when I did drink, I don't know if that would have barred me from, the price of alcohol would not have been a concern for me whether or not to come to an area. So her logic is uh, ideological, and that doesn't really
Right. It is one of
come
those things,
forward.
like the price of food goes up. Well, you still need food and you're going to buy it.
Yeah,
It's kind of the
yeah, like
same for beer and alcohol and all of that. It's like, well,
yeah,
I still need a drink at the bar and I'm
yeah,
going to get it and I'm still going to there might be other reasons not to travel to Peterborough.
exactly.
I
Like,
highly doubt that the cost of booze is going to have anything to do with it. Also, if
yeah,
we are this tourist hub that Michelle Ferrari is the champion of, wouldn't taxing people who come here to drink be a good thing for us? Wouldn't that mean we have more money to spend on stuff like attracting physicians to
presumably,
work and
yeah,
live here?
presumably,
So yeah, a bit of an interesting thing there. Of course, it's
yeah,
all about the cost of living, which of course is a concern.
yeah,
I just don't
yeah,
think alcohol is where it's at. And as
yeah,
someone who's had cancer, I would highly recommend not getting it,
yeah. Uh,
and reducing
yeah.
your risk of getting it as well.
The other thing that occurs to me here is like she's talking from a position of from people who can afford to travel to Peterborough and their main concern being alcohol, when there are people for whom alcohol is actually a necessity, unfortunately, like that is their lived realities. And so there is a way that she could have framed this to be like, look, we need to, look out for the people who are, but I mean, I'm not saying that carries any more weight, but there's significant research and evidence to suggest that increasing the cost of things will bring down people's um, consumption of it. The unfortunate aspect of it
Yeah,
is that people from economically challenged backgrounds who may be at a greater risk of developing, not to say that they are, but it's there's a neither of it it just doesn't make sense on any level. So she
yeah,
can't even like she's coming at it from such a place of privilege that it
yeah,
it doesn't surprise me, but yeah,
exactly.
I think at the root of it, she's just concerned about the price of the wine, her bathtub wine,
That's right.
wine that she consumes in her bathtub, not wine that she makes in her bathtub. I want to be. Although
Yes.
she might have to start doing that if she's that concerned about the price of it. Who
With the
knows?
way the prices are going, she might have to
Yeah,
start. That is true.
poor Michelle with
Um,
her 6 kids.
Someone in chat is saying that I think the rent is a bigger priority when it comes to the cost of living. And yeah, that's
Yeah,
absolutely it. If you were actually approaching this from a intersectional lens, or worried about the cost of living, your top priority would not be the cost of champagne. All right, and
exactly. Yeah.
we're definitely over time, so we should probably end it there. Which means if you
All right.
stuck around for drama, you got duped. I'm so sorry.
Ooh,
You got duped. Stop being
unfortunate.
such a drama llama. You
Because
know,
there's so much drama, an
there is so
unbelievable
much
amount of
drama.
drama.
That is true.
Oh God.
But you can check me out, my homie Tutaro, and we'll do llama. Or sorry, we won't do llama. We'll do drama. We do drama every other day of the week, and every other
Yeah,
hour of the week, in addition to news and stuff. So shameless
yeah.
self plug at the end. There's someone in chat named Drama Llama Panorama, who is
Awesome
saying
name.
sorry in chat. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so
Amazing.
much to the audience, to the questions. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much to the listeners. This is going to become a Peterborough institution. Thanks so much,
Yes.
especially to Robert Gibson, who is in chat and keeping time for us and tells us when we need to move on to the next topic. We
Oh,
are
thanks, Robert.
Yeah, we are gathering our forces and we are becoming more organized even. You might have noticed that this episode was more organized than the first two. And it's
Yes.
only going to get better with time, especially if you donate to the Trent Arthur at trentarthur.ca/donate. We've had some new donations ever since the podcast started, which I noticed as well.
Yes. Yeah, which is fantastic. And yeah, for many reasons that might be even more necessary, given the
That's
dark
right.
forces afoot at Trent University.
Oh yes, and the
Yeah.
cost of booze as well, which
Well, the cost of booze too. Yeah. Yeah.
that's right.
Yes. Yeah.
We even though we both don't drink, it's obviously a big expense for the Arthur newspaper.
Absolutely. We have a fully stocked bar in Sadler House.
That's
We
right.
don't.
That's
Do
right. We
not have
don't.
that.
Okay. All right.
Funny.
Thank you so much, Sebastian.
Thank you, Danny. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.